Hi, this is Professor Tiffany Martin with Medical Microbiology, and we are continuing Chapter 6, Microbial Nutrition and Growth. Okay, so let's do nitrogen really quick. Nitrogen is also a growth requirement. It's also often referred to as a growth limited nutrient because most organisms can't make their nitrogen. They have to take it in. And all organisms need nitrogen. Nitrogen is a building block for our nucleotides, nitrogenous bases. We're going to talk about chapter when we get to DNA this week. We're going to talk about nitrogenous bases. Nitrogenous, it needs nitrogen. A lot of our amino acids need nitrogen. So we have to have it in order to grow and to build things. So we have to have it, but we don't make it. And so that can be a problem. How do we get it? Well, we have to obtain it through our environment, through eating other organisms or plants. When you fertilize your lawn, you'll buy a fertilizer and it has a couple of numbers in it, 10-30- whatever. One of those numbers is the amount of nitrogen. So we have to add it to our soils and our lawns to get good growth from that. So we take in nitrogen from our environment. And we need it because we need it to build amino acids and nucleotides. Now we can recycle nitrogen when we break down proteins. We can use those nitrogen when we break down nucleotides. We can build something else. So when we eat things and we break down their proteins, we can use that to rebuild. Okay, so let me tell you a quick story first, and then we'll come back to some other organisms from that. Let me do a all right, so I'm going to draw on my board again. I can't draw. And let's say that I decide to move to the country. I'm going to retire, move to the country. I'm going to buy a farm. So here's my farm. It's Farm A because I don't have any imagination. So this is Farm A. My neighbors are over here with Farm B, and I'm going to grow something. So my neighbors have been growing corn. And corn is a good crop. And I'm like, okay, seems to grow well. They're growing corn. So I decide to grow corn my first year as well. So we grow our corn, and at harvest season, my neighbor's corn looks great because that's awesome. They've been farming. And I'm honestly pretty proud because my corn looks good as well. That's a smiley face if you can't see it. Okay, so the first year went well, learned some things. Let's go to year 2. I plant my corn again, and that's happy. But I look over at my neighbors, and they are planting beans this year. Okay, not sure why. Corn worked well. Corn makes more money than beans. I'm going to stick with my corn. So year 2 comes along. This is year 1, and this is year 2. And I do my corn, and I do okay with my corn. It's not as good as my first year crop, but it does okay. Beans are beans. They harvest that, and they do fine. So that's year 2. Year 3, my neighbors go back to corn. And now I'm feeling kind of smug because, now they're going back to corn like I was doing the whole time. And they go back to corn, and harvest time comes, and my neighbors' crops look great. Their corn is beautiful. My corn is a big fat dud. It's not growing well, didn't do anything like the second year, wasn't anything like the first year. Their corn looks great. What happened here? This is a practice called crop rotation. And this is how farmers have been growing for centuries. Now, nowadays, again, we use that fertilizer. We can make corn grow anywhere we want to, which is the reason we can grow so much corn and support such a large population of people on this planet than has ever been present before. But before that, they were practicing crop rotation. So let me tell you something about those beans. We can go back to my PowerPoint. Those beans, these legumes, these beans have roots. In these roots make very good ecosystem, and other microorganisms can grow within the roots. And so if you look at these little nodules that we find on the roots of these, bean plants, these nodules are filled with bacteria. And that's okay because we have bacteria that lives with us. Not all bacteria are bad and cause diseases. These bacteria that actually live within their roots are called rhizobium. That's the genus, several different species of rhizobium bacteria. And they have enzymes enzymes that allow them to take nitrogen from the atmosphere, gaseous nitrogen, and turn it into ammonia. You remember I said we couldn't do that. We can't take nitrogen from the atmosphere. We can take it from we can take it by breaking down amino acids, but we can't take just nitrogen and turn it into something that we can use. But these bacteria can. They can convert nitrogen from the air into ammonia, and then ammonia can get converted into other things. In fact, we can take ammonia and convert it into other things. So these are called nitrogen fixing microorganisms. This process of converting gaseous nitrogen into ammonia is called nitrogen fixation, and it's a way that these organisms can use to make nitrogen. So these organisms present in my neighbor's crop of beans, these beans were allowed to replace all the extra nitrogen that they didn't use, got put into the soil. So the next year when corn was growing, they had a great source of nitrogen and were able to grow healthy and strong from that. Mine were competing for lower amounts of nitrogen and they didn't do very well. So that's what's going on here. Beans, the microorganisms growing within the beans allowed for nitrogen fixation to occur and added extra nitrogen back into the soil. Okay, so nitrogen is another growth requirement from organisms. All right, so we're going to stop there and then we'll pick up with the next one with physical requirements for growth. Thanks, guys.